Hey Danny, how you doing, man?
Very well, Lewis. How are you?
I'm very well.
Excellent.
Good.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah. The first time I saw Daniel Kerr.
What? Wait a minute. Decide what accent you're doing, Morgan, right? Because you went, the first time I saw Daniel Kerr. Like, that's... What?
Your name is so innately Scottish that it forces the Scot out in me.
Yeah, every time you hear of a Scottish person, you automatically think Daniel Kerr.
Yeah.
You don't think of William Wallace or Jimmy. You just think...
It's impossible to say that name in an English accent. You have to say Willem Wallace.
Willem Wallace.
Willem Wallace.
So that's the 10-minute bullshit started, has it?
That is the 10-minute bullshit started, yeah.
Yep. I mean, excellent. You know, we've got to
Have you got your wheel of bullshit still?
I do, yes. I do.
Go on, spin that bad boy. I had to edit out some of the clicks last time because it went on
far
too long to be funny.
I noticed that. I was like, that's a bit short.
Right, I promise I'll leave all of these clicks in.
Okay,
Ready?
Okay, it's going to last 40 minutes.
Spin that bad boy.
That's me stopped it with my hand there. See?
Good stuff.
Yeah.
What's it landed on?
It has landed on Phillip.
Phillip. Oh my god.
We haven't had him for a while, have we? I was beginning to forget about him a wee bit.
No, I presumed he wasn't on the podcast as a result of his extradition.
Yeah. What was that for again?
He killed 3 sheep.
And they tasted brilliant as well, eh? Phillip. Jesus Christ.
For those
Phillip.
who are unaware of Phillip, years ago, when Danny and I were working on 4 O'Clock Club, we were halfway through a long day, and I was really stressed out, and I looked down at the floor just to check my shoelaces or whatever dull thing I was doing at that specific moment in time, and I looked up at Danny, and he was doing this idiotic face, and I just started giggling at the time, and I was like, what the hell are you doing? What's wrong with you? And he went, hello, my name's Phillip. I'm Daniel's understudy. And it just kept going. It kept building. Oh.
I mean,
it's one of my favourite things.
Yeah, it's like a snowball, innit? It's just...
It is, it really is.
Avalanching down a hill. I mean, it was... When we started this podcast many moons ago, a couple of months, he was an integral part of the team, but there was some creative differences, wasn't there, Lewis?
There was, yeah.
Yeah.
I said, why don't we, for the next one, do the Night Manager? And then he responded by being so infuriated that he killed 3 sheep.
Yes.
So, you know.
Yeah. And the sheep, he told me in confidence, I'm going to say it anyway, because fuck privacy. He told me, and you know, I could get drummed out of the magic circle for telling you this.
The magic circle?
Yeah.
What magic tricks has he taught you?
You don't want to know, Lewis. It involves
sheep killing.
Numerous sheep.
I see.
He says, "I'm gonna make these sheep disappear, right?" And then he just kills them all. Like he doesn't even make an attempt to conceal it. You know, he says, "I'm gonna make them disappear," and then just stabs the fuck out of them. And I'm like, Phillip, they're still there. No, they're no. And just like he insists that no, he's made them. They're no longer there. You can't see them anymore.
Good stuff. What did Phillip tell you, Danny?
Oh yeah, shit. That one. He told me. Just trying to make something up now. I can't even remember what the context was. What was?
Neither can I.
What was
it when he left the show due to creative differences?
I don't know.
Because he told me in confidence, but I will tell you and our subscribers due to
thank
fuck
God.
privacy.
Thank God you remembered that completely legitimate statement.
He told me in a very thick Scottish accent, I have to say. He gave me a call, and it was quite late at night, and by the sound of his voice I could tell he'd had a few, and he said to me, you know, I really hate Scotland. And I was like, you what? What do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. Aren't you from Scotland? He went, yeah, I hate it. And you know what else I hate? And I went, what? Philip, calm down, mate. But yeah, tell me, what's up? And he said, I really hate that Danny. I really hate him. I hate the fact that he's always there in Scotland. That's where he lives.
Wow.
I hate that so much. and then he hung up. And then I've never seen or heard from him again.
Wow. That's the best you could come up with, really. You've sat there listening to me talking shite, and that's the best you could think of.
That is the best I could think of. If I think of anything better, halfway through your scathing indictment of the American justice system when we start talking about the Shawshank Redemption, halfway through I'll say, hang on, wait.
I've got one.
Philip told me he was part of a summoning ritual where he was trying to summon William Wallace. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Fuck's sake. No, I mean, as part of our written constitution, Lewis, that was
the written constitution of shouting into the void.
Yeah, that was a neat wee joke that you brought up. I'm bringing it back. As part of our written constitution, no creative choice can be made without the approval of both aforementioned podcasters.
You and I.
Yes.
I see.
But I'm afraid that I've made a deal with Phillip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you about it, but he wants every 10-minute bullshit, 1 minute allocated to him speaking.
Does he?
Yeah, I mean,
I see.
And
how long does he think it's going to be before we inevitably forget to do that?
I don't know. Maybe this episode and a couple more.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it'll be gone by next episode. Probably. I mean, he's he's that unreliable. But I tell
you what, I do wonder about the shouting into the void constitution.
Go on.
Is there's this other podcast, Hello Internet. It's got like a billion listeners, and it is really good. It's really funny. I like it.
Yep.
But they took it upon themselves to have a flag made.
Oh.
They got their listeners to design flags, and then to send in their flag designs, and they were voted on till they had a final. I think it was 6 or 7 in their final shortlist.
Right.
And then they had votes on what flag there was best. And now, if you Google Hello Internet flag, it's a nail and gear flag on a grey background.
I'll just do that now.
Yeah, and that was a user-voted flag. So when we are Hello Internet big, we'll have to design our own flag.
Yeah, we'll have
or design a few. Have people vote on it.
Yeah, we'll have to shamelessly rip that off. Oh yeah, there it is. Wow, that's the flag they went for.
You should see some of the others. The others aren't great. Google White Cross.
Fuck me. Look at that flag. Look at it.
What, nail and gear?
Yeah, it's the most pointless flag I've ever seen.
It is a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, that's the one they went for, Lewis. See, when we do rip them off, we're going to have such a better flag than that.
What's a better flag than that?
Oh, just you wait.
No, but seriously, I'm curious now.
Okay, let me think. I'm literally just looking around my room to see what I can...
what you can conjure up.
Yep. What our flag will be... Okay. Are you listening?
I'm listening.
Are you listening? Yep. Okay.
Yep.
What okay. What our flag will be is a bookcase.
Right.
And a piece of blue tack on a field of brown.
On a field of... I cannot think of a worse flag than that.
No, listen. It's very clever, okay? So
is it?
Yep. So the brown represents shit, right?
Right. Right.
And then the bookcase, right? It's not going to be a real bookcase, right? It's going to be like obviously it's not a real bookcase, but it's going to be like a sort of really bad drawing of a bookcase, right? I'm gonna get like my little cousin to draw it, right? And
How old's your little cousin?
2.
Even better. True flag connoisseurs, 2-year-olds.
Yep, and there's gonna be a bit of blue tack next to it. So the bookcase represents the badly drawn bookcase.
Okay.
Represents our flimsy attempts to review media. And,
Right.
And the blue tack represents how much time we have left, so that when it finally stops becoming sticky, that's when we stop.
So the blue tack is a representation of mortality.
Yeah, and it's like an hourglass type thing, so as soon as it falls off,
Okay.
we have to stop podcasting.
I see. I think what you've just described is not a good flag.
I thought that up out of fuck all. Give me some fucking credit for it. Jesus Christ, I can't believe I thought that up. That's pretty fucking good. No, it isn't.
It is good. It is. Right. It is, but you could have picked many different things to represent. The brown represents shit.
Fuck.
I think a good, stalwart, easy flag is to have one block colour as the background,
Right.
then some kind of, like, outline of a shape in the middle, like a hexagon or a circle or whatever, then have a very simple drawing of something in the middle of that circle.
Yep. Okay.
So I would say, I mean, it is annoying because we have sort of chosen, like, brown as the shouting into the void colour to some degree. Because, like, the website has that enormous library and the bookshelves and wood, and
Yeah.
it is, brown is kind of the colour. But,
I mean, the book that I write on my notes in is brown as well.
is it?
Yep.
I have, I type my notes on Evernote, which is green.
Ugh, yuck.
If I find a way to change the theme to brown, I'll let you know.
My book is falling apart.
Is it? Why? What have you done to it?
Because I just sort of like, because it's so flimsily made, it's hard to sort of keep it, proper. It's a moleskin book.
Okay.
And it's very flimsy. So.
I have moleskin books that I've had for several years and they haven't really fallen apart.
Yeah, well,
what have you been doing to this notebook?
I haven't been doing anything to the notebook. It's Philip. Philip's been doing shit to it.
Philip's been coming in and jumping up and down on it, and
Yep, and he's been licking it and making contracts, and he wants this notebook, Lewis. That's what he wants, really.
does he?
He doesn't.
If he's had his hands on it, couldn't he just put it in his pocket and walk away?
No, but look, because legally he can't take it.
Oh, it would be stealing.
Yeah, yeah, but he doesn't have a problem licking it.
Just a. Because that's not illegal, just weird.
That's him. That's a great misnomer for Philip. I don't know if I've used that word in the correct context. But,
You haven't.
Right,
But
right.
but I see what you mean. It's good Philip nomenclature.
Okay, right. Fuck off.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff.
But no, that's a good caption for him. Not illegal, just weird. No one's sent in any papers, Lewis, as of
No,
yet.
they haven't. They haven't.
But then again, we're recording this days earlier.
We are.
So
There's a very slim chance that by this Sunday, because this is Tuesday,
Yeah.
there's a very slim chance that by Sunday when this goes out, somebody will have sent in their papers.
Yeah.
And if they have, I will put it in the show notes. If unless it's like 6:59 on Sunday that they send it in, I'll put it in the show notes, and I'll let you know.
Yep. I mean, it's almost as if people have got lives. Almost as if they don't have time to rip up bits of kitchen roll.
And tape them together in assorted bizarre ways.
Yeah.
I'm curious, by the way, that paper you sent me the picture of, was that like one you made when you were a child, or did you make that recently?
I made that recently.
Ah, exciting.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, before we ever brought it up on the podcast?
No. No, because I don't do them anymore.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah, I don't. I sit up in my room, just constantly, just I waited. That's what I was doing when you were on holiday. I just fucking sat in my room, ripped up bits of kitchen roll, and just went. I just thought, right, okay, how did I do it? Oh yeah, okay, right. I ripped it, blah, and then before I knew it, it was made.
And did your dad come in and see it and go, "Ugh, what are you doing that for?" And then throw it out the window?
Yeah, and then, yeah, he tried to throw me out, but I wouldn't fit, so...
What you would neglect to mention is that your bedroom is not a bedroom, it's a prison cell.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very small window.
It's as big as Harry Potter's cupboard.
But it's somehow also a room.
Yeah, like I can still record podcasts in it.
Good stuff. And the acoustics don't sound at all like a tiny room. But aside from that, it's a tiny room.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Danny?
Yep.
What film are we talking about this week?
Oh shit, are we doing that? Okay. This week we're talking about the Shawshank Redemption.
We are talking about the Shawshank Redemption.
Directed by Frank Darabont. It was also written by Frank Darabont with Stephen King, who wrote the short story.
Mm-hmm.
Starring Morgan Freeman, Tim Robbins, Bob Gunton, and Clancy Brown, who plays Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob.
Does he actually?
He does, yeah. So there you go.
That's good, I like that.
Yep. Do you have an opening statement, sir?
I do have an opening statement, sir. My opening statement is a straightforward and yet very poignant story about the nature of life and death. Superb performances all round. They take you on quite the emotional roller coaster. Every single character in the story is truly relatable.
Well, there you go. An emotional, heartwarming, and breaking film on fantastically dignified, realistic, and human characters. The title literally foreshadows the redemption of the prison with the help of Andy and his friends. Staying in the past disables us to adapt and can only lead to degradation.
Indeed. Now, I think before we start talking about CRQs, have you seen the pop culture detective video about the Shawshank Redemption?
I certainly have.
It's really interesting, right?
It certainly is.
It certainly is. One thing I was interested to find out was that the Stephen King short story Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption was based on like an old Tolstoy story, which is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea where I was going with that, but it is kind of interesting.
No, that is very interesting. It's quite it shows because it is a long film, and Tolstoy had, a knack for writing long, sort of stories, sort of epics. And I think the pop culture detective video is very interesting as well. And I've watched a few of his things, and they're all pretty they're sort of very demystifying, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I agree. And they sort of, I do enjoy his work. He taps into things that you'd realised but hadn't even considered.
Yeah.
Like, I particularly enjoyed his video about, was it Fantastic Beasts? Where he talked about, is really interesting. He talked about the masculinity of Newt Scamander, this character in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Yeah.
And he talked about how he doesn't display any typical, like, hyper-masculine, The Rock style, like, masculine qualities.
Yeah.
Like, he's very timid and shy, he's skinny and very anxious, and he can't make eye contact with people because he's very nervous to talk to people in conversation and stuff. But at no point during the course of the film do you doubt his sort of masculinity. He's very caring and very nurturing, which is not very often seen as a hyper-masculine trait.
Yeah.
But it is executed very well in this particular film.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, he does a lot of good video. The one with Wally, I think, is pretty good.
I haven't seen the one with Wally, actually.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about how it's like about hedonism and things like that, and how we could, we sociologically ignore the problem.
Sure.
Due to our own pleasures, which is, yeah, I mean, fair enough. It's just before we go, I'm closing the door on politics this episode, folks. Just we were skirting the edges of it there, but it's all right. I mean,
I've got a vaguely skirting the edges of politics question later, just to pull on you, Danny.
Okay. Disclaimer: Lewis has got a vaguely, maybe political question later on, so I'll let you know when that happens.
Do you have any CRQs?
I do, yes. Does threat of punishment prevent crime?
This is one of the interesting things I think about the punishment system worldwide, is that yes, it does, but not in the right way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In that, like, it's like quite often you hear about Sharia law and how stealing something, you'll get your hand chopped off. It's like, yeah, well, it'll make you not want to steal things, but the urge and desire and need to steal things is still there.
Yeah, definitely.
The way to get rid of this urge to steal is either through education or through sort of welfare, I suppose.
Yeah.
Where people are in a position where they don't need to steal and they don't want to steal.
Yep. I agree.
What do you think about?
I think, well, yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's people will still want to do, bad things, and it is often circumstances that lead people to steal and sometimes kill. But just threatening people, you will be punished if you do that. It's almost like the idea of heaven. Like, is that because you want to do good, or is it because you want to go to heaven and you don't want to go to hell? It's like,
that was an interesting.
It's almost like, are you loving someone out of fear of what they might do, or just doing what they say because you don't want to be punished for it? Is that really doing the right thing?
On that front, there's an interesting point in The Good Place, one of my favourite sitcoms of all time. And they talk briefly about one of the characters. They have to try and prove that she is capable of getting better and improving as a person and becoming kind. They have this monitor where they monitor her points, her goodness points. And the idea is if she increases from so many points to so many points, then it proves that human beings are capable of getting better.
Yeah.
They try everything and it doesn't work and they can't figure out why, and then they realise it's because her motivation is corrupt. They realise that the only reason that she wants to improve is because she wants to stay in what she believes to be heaven.
I mean, that's an interesting question to pose. It's like, well, is it acceptable to have a society where people are just afraid of doing bad things but still want to do them? Is it, if that's what you could have instead of people doing bad things, would you just accept that? Well, I mean, at least they're not doing bad stuff even though they really want to. So is that worth it?
Yeah, I understand what you mean. It's the case of say you tell a child to apologise for something. If it's Timmy, apologise for spilling orange juice on your sister.
Yeah.
And then Timmy says, "I'm sorry for spilling orange juice on you."
Yeah.
How do you have any proof that Timmy is sorry? Timmy understands the concept of an apology. Exactly. Timmy feels remorse for. I mean, I don't know if spilling orange juice isn't exactly murder, but you know what I mean.
No.
At what point does Timmy develop the higher sort of social functions to be able to understand what that apology really means?
Yeah.
Should he, when he does understand, should he go back and find his sister and say, "Look, I am actually really sorry for doing that when I was 3 or whatever"?
Yeah, because I don't like apologising if I've done something. It's embarrassing, and I think that a lot of the time you'll find that people just sort of say it because they have to. Obviously not when you're an adult. I think there are plenty of people who do bad things and don't apologise for them out of spite or at all.
Yeah. That's one thing I do hate is people that just refuse to apologise because they no, I'm an adult, I'm not going to apologise.
Yeah.
Yes, but you did do something wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I think apologising, it's a level of humility that people don't want to exhibit to some degree.
I would agree with that. Can people change?
I believe so.
So do I. But it's
a very brief, pointless discussion point.
No, but it's that old saying. It's like people don't change. It's like, well, they do though. People have the capacity to do better than they did before.
I think the phrase "people don't change" often is used to sort of illustrate it's post hoc ergo proctor hoc explanations, after the fact and therefore because of the fact.
Yes.
Like in Friends. I mean, I talk a lot about Friends, but in Friends.
You don't like Friends, do you?
I like Friends. I acknowledge that it's problematic, and I acknowledge that it could be better, and I acknowledge that the characters are all sort of pieces of shit. But like,
I mean, yeah,
I enjoy it.
You have to acknowledge that it's a 90s comedy. You know.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Can you really sort of expect sort of high art? You know.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Can you expect a sort of, you know, a nuanced message about it? Or is it just a sort of cheap laugh that people sort of enjoy because it's on and, you know, some bits are funny and it's just, you know, it's something that's on that you don't have to really think about, if you know what I mean? I think that's the appeal of it. God, I sound like such a snob, don't I? It's like, well, it's do you know what I mean?
It's for the plebs. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
No, it's I think what I was trying to get at was, I think Ross obviously cheats on Rachel, and then they break up, and then thereafter, at some point or another,
they were on a break.
But at some point or another, Rachel says, "I should have listened to my mother when she said that cheaters never change," and it's like, no, it's not that he is never going to change; it's that he doesn't value that relationship enough to change.
Yes.
He doesn't value what's going on around him. I mean, Ross is a piece of shit. Just in general. But in this one specific example, he is also like...
Apologies to all the Friends fans out there.
No, I think...
No, he's a piece of shit.
The thing is, he kind of is. Like, if you watch back a lot of Ross's bits without a laugh track, it becomes very obvious that he's some kind of psychopath.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're going to find it difficult to find sitcom characters real, decent human beings.
But then my argument against that is watch, say, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. All the characters in that are fairly good people. And yeah, they do have bad traits and bad qualities, but the show is, in a lot of ways, about their growth and about how they change.
Well, I mean, that's why I like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Because they don't change.
Because they don't change, and the sitcom says, look, these characters are fucking awful. Like, they are just utter narcissists. So people, I almost have more sort of truck with people who admit that they're bad, if you know what I mean. Like, even though they do horrible things, it's like, well, at least they're honest about it, you know. But people who pretend that they're good and do shitty things, I almost hate them more.
I think that's the great hypocrisy of a lot of people in the world who say, well, I go to church and therefore I'm a good person, but they are also not good people. They're using things like that to justify bad actions.
Yes, it's Stephen Fry made an excellent point. He was talking to a presenter of I think it's RTE, the Irish.
I think is it an Irish TV network?
Yes, I think.
Yeah.
I think it might be. And he was talking about God, and he was talking about how, on the surface, if you know, God, it's about love and you know, acceptance and tolerance on the surface of it. But if you look at the Bible and the Old Testament specifically, God does some horrendous things, and for that reason, Stephen Fry is like, well, you know, if it was the Greek gods, then I would have a lot more truck with it, because the Greeks didn't pretend to be
divine.
Yeah, or to be, you know, unreasonable or capricious, but here we have a deity that says you must love me and I am love, but does horrendous things. You know.
It's one of my great issues with the phrase to err is human, to forgive divine. Because, like, well, no, forgiving it sort of has to be human nature. It sort of has to be part of humanity.
Yep.
Can you imagine if we lived in a world where nobody forgived anybody for anything?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's the amount of... we talked briefly about, a couple of episodes ago, you mentioned there is a lot of war. And you're right. But can you imagine how much war there would be if we didn't forgive anybody ever for anything,
Yes, definitely.
how many old, forgotten conflicts we'd still be fighting and not know why?
Yeah. I mean, forgiveness is important, and it's also important for yourself. Because what a horrible life you must live if you just don't forgive things that happen to you and don't.
Yeah, and
don't
incredibly
move on.
a very, very spiteful existence. Yeah.
Yes, very, very miserable and very, bitter.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question.
Go on.
If there hadn't have been a thunderstorm on the night that Andy escaped from Shawshank, would he still have escaped that way? Or would he have, scraped at the pipe until he broke through, or what would he have done?
I wonder, maybe he would have just waited until there was a thunderstorm.
But then that raises the question, how long was that tunnel in his cell, and nobody even knew?
Yeah. There's a few things wrong with the tunnel escape.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, the fact that he climbs in and the poster is hanging up.
Yeah, you do wonder how that one happened.
How the fuck did you do that? The I don't see how no one noticed that in all the years. They searched his cell probably many, many, many times, and they didn't. Oh, it's a bit cold in here, isn't it? Do you mind? There's a draft coming from the I don't know,
from behind the poster that's fluttering in the breeze that isn't in the cell.
Yeah.
There was, of course, the Family Guy version of Shawshank, where Peter was hammering through the pipe, and up above him in the office, the warden was watching Friends, and during the clapping went ding 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 and broke a hole in the pipe that way.
Have you seen the Robot Chicken version of it?
I haven't, no.
Where Batman is the warden of Arkham Asylum, and he's doing a roll call, and he's like, Joker, you better be sick or dead in there, I shit you not. And then he crawls through, and he's like, oh, you think you can escape, huh, Joker? Not with the Batman on your tail. And he climbs through the hole, and he's like going through the sewer, and the Joker hasn't actually left yet, and he's like, and he sits on the he sits in the toilet, and he's like, forget about the Green Mile, try walking the Brown Mile, and literally shits in the toilet, flushes it, and Batman is, shoved out by Joker's feces. It's a very philosophical.
Very philosophical, very highbrow, yeah.
Yep. Oh, it's funny. It's funny.
Do you have any more questions?
That is funny. It's funny, Lewis.
It is funny, I know it's funny. You better fucking think it's funny.
Do prisons contribute to crime?
An interesting question, how do you mean?
Well, I mean, it's tragically portrayed with Brooks.
Yeah.
If someone is in prison for most of their life or for a very long time, it's almost as if like their autonomy has been stripped, and it's impossible to sort of live in the outside world if because times had so dramatically changed while they were in prison.
Yeah.
And I imagine that would be very hard to adapt to. And maybe that sort of, I'll just commit a crime and then just get sent back in.
It does raise an interesting point in that way of the prison is obviously horrible. These prisoners live in horrific conditions. Nothing is ever very clean. There's maggots in their food. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, and they get beat up and they get...
Yeah, exactly. But on the same level, they want to go back because the outside world is so horrifying for them. Being free is almost a horrifying concept.
It's almost like Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah. It's crazy. It really is.
It really is. Just it's horrible. But it's a very difficult question because crime has to be dealt with.
Yeah.
But it's to what degree you deal with it that's the real sort of kicker, if you know what I mean. And I think that I don't know much about prisons here, to be honest. I don't know much about how prisons work in Britain, which is pretty ironic considering I fucking live here.
Yeah.
But I know that there are prisons in America are notoriously very violent and very savage places.
Yeah.
And have just mass incarceration of prisoners. I think America is like the sort of definition of, yes, crime must be punished at all costs, and yeah, if you want to go down that road, then fine, but you're not gonna, like you said, you're not gonna solve people wanting to commit crimes.
Yeah.
You're just gonna make people want to do more.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's an interesting point that he raised in the Pop Culture Detective video of this film displays a lot of the horrifying realities of an American prison system. And he talked about prison campaigners and how a lot of the things depicted in the film are actually kind of true in a horrible, horrible way.
Yeah.
Like things about how the disgusting food, and he even went so far as to say the torturing of inmates in a roundabout way by putting them in solitary confinement for months on end.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of crazy that we live in a world where that's the case. Because surely it's better to just... If the goal is no crime, surely, like, torturing people for months is not the way to go about no crime.
No, definitely not. I don't think that torture is justified on any level.
No. Although it did make Winston love Big Brother.
Yeah, it did. I mean, that's a good point.
But then the whole point is that world is shit. So let's try not to aim for 1984 if we can help it.
Yeah,
let's avoid that.
Let's steer away for that one. No, I think, but torturing human beings is unjustifiable, regardless of who they are, in my view. And it doesn't do anything. But
I completely agree.
It's for the torturer's satisfaction. It's not for anyone else's satisfaction.
Exactly. It's this this sort of inbuilt desire to punch somebody in the face.
Yeah,
which sounds a bit stupid, but you know what I mean.
Revenge, sort of justice, or frontier justice, which is just barbaric in my view.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Because it's not justice anymore. It's just puerile acts of vengeance.
And even to like extract information from a spy or whatever, it's shown that you can't, like, torture is kind of pointless. Even under duress, you can just say a random string of numbers or
exactly. It's fucking shocking. But,
the film does display a couple of vaguely problematic representations of assorted things, like it depicts Andy Dufresne's masculinity as suffering in silence, which is kind of... I mean, that's not great. That's not healthy. It perpetuates this... Well, if men are going to suffer, let them be quiet and sit in a corner and not talk to anybody about it, which is sort of the entire problem at the minute. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, you see all those mental health adverts about, like, ask a mate if he's alright. Is your mate not talking to you very much? Ask him if he's alright, and stuff like that.
I agree that men shouldn't suffer in silence, but I don't think it's a sort of, because he learns the first night that it's not a place that rewards speaking out about your feelings and how you're feeling. So I don't think that's a sort of direct sort of thing by the filmmaker to say, men should just be quiet and men should just be strong and silent. I think it's another symptom of the horrible place that they're in, because that poor man in the first night who cries for his mother is killed for crying and showing his feelings. So from Andy's perspective, I would imagine I need to just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
And just keep to myself and just work away and get through this. Which isn't useful in the real world. I wouldn't say. It's like you should speak to people if you've got problems. But in prison, where every person in authority will fucking kill you if
Yeah.
you say anything, it's probably best to keep your mouth shut. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
From a survival point of view, and I think that's another point as to how barbaric the prison system can be. It's like, you know, these men are forced to just internalize everything, and just, you know, just to the point where you just it's hard to show emotion anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's more of a comment on how barbaric prisons can be rather than a problematic thing with the film itself.
Sure. I think something that sort of definitely is problematic about the film is its representation of, what's it called them? The Sisters? That gang of gay men that exist exclusively to be predatory.
Yeah, but that's a stereotype of like.
It is a stereotype of prisons. You're right, and it is sort of not impressive, but it's good that they represented that dynamic of Andy being regularly sexually assaulted, and it's really horrific for him.
Yeah, I mean, Hollywood has had a long sort of tradition of like making jokes about male rape in prison, and people, you know, just laugh at it. And I'm you know, I'm ashamed to say that I have as well, because it is, you know, it's just everywhere, and it always has been. I mean, like, you look at any TV show, and, you know, Don't Drop the Soap and things like that. It's like, but it's one of those things that's always there, but when you think about it for more than 2 seconds,
yeah, you begin to analyse it, and it's horrible.
You're like, wow,
yeah,
that's fucking horrible. So, I mean, I think Hollywood has had they've got a long sort of list of people who have laughed at that throughout their lives. Yeah, it's horrible. It is horrible.
It really is horrible. Do you have any questions?
I think just while we're on the sisters, I think that it's a good thing that we're referencing the pop culture detective a lot, but it's a good thing.
We are, yeah.
So I mean, you know, don't say that we've copied him. It's just it's a homage. I think that the quote from Morgan Freeman, it's like, Andy's like, I suppose it wouldn't help if I told them that I wasn't a homosexual, and Morgan Freeman says, well, neither are they. You have to be human first. It's like, so it's not a comment on homosexual people. It's
a comment on rapists.
It's a comment on rapists, exactly. You know, and I think that's a good thing that the film did, which you know, is a lot of films sort of fail to get right. It's like, no, you can't call these people. You can't say, look at what these gay people are doing. It's like, no, look at what these rapists are doing. Yeah. And there's a huge distinction to be made, I think.
You're completely right.
Because if you know, if it was on the street and it was a man and a woman, you wouldn't say, oh, look at what that straight person is doing. You would say, look at what that rapist is doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think it's far ahead of the films that came after it and came before it.
You're right. Do you have any other questions?
Are prisoners dehumanized?
I think so. At least in this film, anyway. I've never been to prison, so I can't answer that question as truthfully as I'd like to. But in this film, yeah, they are. They're stripped of sort of basic rights and basic, even sort of privileges, like clean.
What I mean is, see, when you think of a prisoner, do you think that what do you automatically think of when you think of a prisoner?
Well, like a man in a striped jumpsuit.
Do you see a crime or do you see a person?
Well, that's very true. Is that person gone there for murdering 100 people, or is he there for stealing an iPad? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think that obviously, it's a difficult line to skirt, because crime is bad and crime needs to be solved. But as I've said, it's the way that you solve it that's the important thing. And I think that when you automatically think of a prisoner, it's not about the human being that was pushed to do these things, or put in a position where he or she thought that it was important to steal that car. It's just you automatically think of the crime, and in that sense that prisoners aren't human. It's like you're just thinking of what they did rather than what made them do it. Do you know?
You're right.
Do
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You stop considering that there are like socioeconomic factors that might have driven people
Yes.
to. It's like that's sort of, in a way, that's sort of the moral of like Les Miserables. How the entire point that Jean Valjean has been imprisoned for that long is because he was stealing bread to feed his family. And could you not argue that stealing bread to feed your family isn't really even a crime?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean,
it is technically a crime, yes, but see what I mean?
Well, that's the problem. It's like morally, it's a noble thing to do. You could argue.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, instead of saying you're a criminal and we're going to punish you, it's like, well, why did he have to do that? What made him sort of, what pushed him to that point?
Yeah, totally.
So yeah. Have you got any questions?
I do, and this is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek one, but it's also kind of serious.
Right.
At what point in accountancy school did they teach you how to avoid tax? At what point in accountancy school did they say, right, these are the tax avoidance lessons, so if you're ever in prison and you need to bribe the guards with, like, making them pay less tax, like, you know what I mean? That's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah. I didn't really understand that when I saw that in the film. Maybe they do teach you that, because isn't there a difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance?
Yeah, which
it's that one
makes my blood boil, but
yeah,
yes.
One is technically legal, I think,
but morally extremely grey.
Yeah,
and the other is very illegal. Yeah.
Let's like Jimmy Carr, for instance, I think he get done with tax avoidance.
Instead of tax evasion.
Yeah, which was like he stayed in Britain for 6 months, which is the amount of time that you can go without paying tax if you live here. So if you moved back and you stay for 6 months and then you move away again, and then you just keep doing that, you don't have to pay tax. Almost, because you're not, because you just keep moving, which I think is probably tax avoidance. And I don't know. I'm not an expert on it, and I don't know if that's the case, but I think that's what he did.
Sure.
But I don't want to get done for slander. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Apologies. But so what he?
Because he was an accountant in the outside world.
So was he avoidance or evasion?
I suppose it was avoidance is what he was doing for the guards and stuff, is you can pay less tax if you say that your car has got a 1.3 litre engine instead of a 1.2, and if you've only got 3 bedrooms in your house instead of 2 and a spare room. And yeah.
I mean, he's exploiting a system to make himself more well off in a other horrible system.
And then exactly, because he's sort of an innocent man in this horrible system, couldn't it be argued that, maybe that's just the only way it's morally justifiable?
Yeah.
The fact that he's a good person who's been wronged, and therefore he's wronging the system that wronged him, if that makes sense.
Yes. And that see that scene where they're all drinking beer and he's just sitting smiling. That's one of my favourite scenes in film history. Right there, it's just so warm and so with the sun sort of setting. It's just such a. I don't know how to describe it. It's just.
I know exactly what you mean.
It's
yeah.
just such a decent human scene of just pure kindness and integrity and dignity. It's just amazing to watch that scene. It's one of my favourites. Any other questions?
I have questions on questions on questions.
Excellent. Hit me.
What gave Andy the idea to escape that way in particular?
Well, we saw that he was etching his name in, and then a bit of rock fell out of
Okay.
the wall.
And he thought, oh, well, in that case, I'll just tunnel through it. But then, how did he know that he wasn't going to tunnel through into an office? Oh, it's the warden's office. It's next door to my... Shit.
Yeah, I mean, well, I suppose if you... I mean, I don't know, obviously, because I've never been to prison. I imagine because you've got so much time in your hands, it's like, well, I might as well just do it, see how it goes. Because I think you'd be able to tell at some point, because you'd probably come up against like sheetrock or like plastering or something like that, and you might be like, okay, that's an office, or that's a room.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But he had to do some walk from the warden's office to get back to his cell.
That's true.
So, and I wouldn't imagine that they'd put the offices of the prison right next door to the cells.
Yeah, that would seem like a strange architectural move.
Yeah. So I think he just sort of went, might as well just give it a go, see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And here's another question. Does this book and the film prove that Stephen King can write anything and that he's not genre-bound? Or is it sufficiently horrible in its description of like sexual assault and the unjust prison system that it becomes a horror novel?
I don't think it's a horror novel.
Mm-hmm.
Because horror novels are, I think, just far more imaginative. And
Sure.
And like, it's called horror, but it deals with stuff that isn't in real life.
Mm-hmm.
But you could argue that because this is real life for many people, or it was at that period of time, it could be considered a horror.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it is just horrifying. But it's got a happy ending.
It does have a happy ending. This is true.
A very uplifting ending. I think, which is which is not very common of horror films. There's always a sort of grey sort of a cost, if you know what I mean.
But yeah, I think there's a big difference between like Get Out and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, obviously.
Yes.
But like Get Out deals with things that, like, there's the difference. I think is that to say Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a horror film about things that are outside of your control, things that are outside of you, and Get Out it's almost a book or a story about a horror that's within you, that a horror that you are concerned about.
Yes.
In some strange level of, well, what if I can't control my body anymore?
Yeah.
It's this deep-seated sort of horrors.
Yeah.
Like, that's what separates okay horror from great horror, is when you read, like, say, Salem's Lot. I keep always going back to this, but it's sort of my, like, horror bible in a weird way. Mm-hmm. But, like, yeah, there are vampires in it, and obviously vampires don't exist, but, like, there are also... all of the horrifying things that happen are essentially things that you're concerned about in your real life.
Yes.
Like, have you ever walked through a graveyard and looked at the graves and unbidden the thought has popped into your head, what if there's somebody in one of these graves that could come out?
Yeah, definitely.
What if I see a hand strike up through the earth? And what if it comes to... do you know what I mean? And then it also talks briefly about this guy's girlfriend gets turned into a vampire.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that is a fear that people have. I mean, obviously not the vampire thing, but in a relationship, it's like, well, what if this person is taken away from me? What if this person... because it's a short leap from this person is taken away from me by death or by the end of a relationship. It's a short leap from those things to this person is taken away from me by a sci-fi situation.
Yes.
It's the same fear, just presented differently.
Yeah, I mean... the reason I have trouble thinking of this as a horror is because horror for me is more in line with H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, cosmic horror type stuff.
Cosmic horror, where just like, I don't think there's anything more horrifying than space and, like, you know.
Sure.
Imagine that there are things out there that are just apathetic to us, and just we are just insignificant little insects squabbling over our, you know, our prison systems and all these...
and red herrings
and just things like that ultimately amount to nothing within the wider universe. You know, I
suppose that's the nature of cosmic horror, is that it makes you it turns looking up into the sky from going, oh, look at those gorgeous stars, to standing on the edge of the cliff and looking down at some sharp rocks.
Yes.
It makes those two things the same.
Definitely. But I think it's more about Stephen King's ability to write people and write...
Yeah, that's very true.
...characters. You know, he's very good at writing characters, and the horror, I think, is more a sort of setting and furniture rather than... I think it's mainly about the characters, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I agree with you. That becomes quite obvious when you read his short stories.
Yeah.
Like Shawshank is a short story, but I took a book of short stories with me a while ago, and I was reading through them, and the obviously these things happening in these stories, like one of them was a plague had wiped out the world, and the narrator of this story was unsure of whether he was immune or not to this plague, and it wasn't about the plague. It was about this boy, and he was talking and saying it was about his inability to know what comes next, and it was about his worries about the future and his worries about his girlfriend and all this stuff. And
yeah,
it is about the characters. You're right. Great horror is about the characters. Good horror is about horror.
Yeah, I mean, because if you watch a cheap horror film,
yeah,
it's never about characters. It's about good-looking people getting killed, which is so boring.
It's one of the things that always gets me when you watch like CSI or something, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this person was a prostitute who was addicted to meth," and then you look at their corpse in this autopsy setting. It's like, really? Because they look.
Yeah,
this doesn't make any sense.
That's a problem that Breaking Bad had. It's like Jesse Pinkman's teeth were probably the best teeth I've ever seen, despite the fact that he's a meth
I know what
head.
you mean. Yeah, yeah. But could you argue that sort of this horror that we're talking about is sort of an emergent property of an aggressive character study in some ways? Like we talked when we did the Terminator episode about how it is sort of a horror. It keeps coming. There is nothing you can do to prepare yourself. There is nothing you can do to see it off. It keeps coming. You will die.
Yes.
But Terminator is nothing if not sort of in a strange way, a character study of a robot, character study of Sarah Connor.
I mean, let me just get the definition of horror up.
Okay.
Because that might be a good way to sort of
spooky things.
reconcile it. A horror film is a film that seeks to elicit fear for entertainment purposes, initially inspired by literature from authors like Edgar Allan Poe and Bram Stoker. So.
I mean, Edgar Allan Poe's stuff is that's.
I love Edgar Allan Poe. I can't speak the day, fuck's sake. But that begs the question. So, is horror about making significant points, or is it just about scares?
Well, interestingly, it's like, Dracula was sort of both. Bram Stoker's Dracula is about the horror of these ghoulish men that live in falling apart castles and they drink blood, but it's also about this sort of horrific ideas of I think briefly it's mentioned that they tie people up and then slowly drain their blood from them and drink it like wine.
Yeah.
And it's because that is a horrific idea presented in a spooky setting.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And maybe that is what horror is. But then it talked briefly about Edgar Allan Poe. And you read, say, The Cask of Amontillado.
Yeah.
And you read that, and that's definitely about, like, a horrifying idea, rather than, like at no point does anybody get stabbed in the Cask of Amontillado.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's about a horrifying idea wrapped up in a ghoulish setting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a film, one of my favourite films, called The Babadook, which is
I haven't seen it, but I am aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the monster doesn't really and it doesn't really kill anyone. It's more a meditation on grief, really.
Sure.
And how this woman overcomes her grief, and as soon as she is able to move on, the Babadook leaves. If you know what I mean. So I think that's a horror film because it is scary. That's a horror film with an interesting point. The Witch. Have you ever seen The Witch?
I haven't. I'm worryingly behind on my horror films.
Yeah, you should.
The Witch, is that the one where the logo is VV?
Yeah, you need to watch The Witch. The Witch is fantastic. It's like Puritans in New England get kicked out of a town and move, and then a witch in the woods begins to do some fucked up shit. But I don't mean
Sure.
I don't just mean like cheap. I mean like biblical, sort of horrific stuff.
Sure.
And
But then could the argument
it almost becomes a sort of like redemption, or not redemption, almost like a sort of a taking power over yourself, because the young girl in it, played by what's her name, Anna Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy. Yeah, she's blamed for a lot of it, as many women were in those days.
It was just sort of organised misogyny in a strange way. Yeah.
Look at her, she's got a left hand, she's a witch, just stuff like that. And then eventually, spoilers for the film. Sorry, Lewis.
No, I don't care.
But she sort of she gets offered by Satan to become a witch. And as messed up as it is, and the loss of her family, it's like, well, yeah, there's a cost, but she now has autonomy over her life.
Sure.
And it was a horrible journey to get there, but she now is sort of free to do what she wants, and is no longer being sort of chastised for ignorance and Puritanism.
And I think I'd argue that the lack of freedom that you mentioned in that story is perhaps what makes it into a horror film. Because you look at themes like, say, vampires, witches, in films that are ostensibly not horror films. Like, it's one of my favourite pieces of dialogue is in Hotel Transylvania, when they're briefly talking to Dracula, played by, I think it's Adam Sandler, and he says, so are all of those myths true? And he says, like what? What do you mean? He says, will garlic kill you? And he says, yes, I have a terrible allergy. Will a stake through the heart kill you? And he says, well, wouldn't that kill anybody? And that's the point he sort of makes, is that the reason that vampires are seen as scary by the rest of the world is because it's because of the cult of mythology that's been built up around it, rather than the idea in isolation.
Yeah. And
then you watch, say, like the new, I haven't seen the old version, but the new Netflix series about Sabrina. That presents Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Oh.
I think it's called The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Yeah, it didn't look that appealing to me.
It's quite good if you've got some spare time.
Right.
But anyway, that presents witchcraft as almost this like the quite a few characters in it subscribe to this notion of, yes, witchcraft is unholy, we worship the devil. But then there are also quite a few characters, like one of Sabrina's aunts is like, well, I feel like I should probably use it to help people, and she makes these like healing potions, and she does positive good things with this thing that is so connoted with bad things, like the Salem witch trials and all that sort of horrible stuff.
Yes.
She makes the point that I feel the show sort of makes the point that witchcraft and these horrible ideas, they are what you make them.
Yes.
Instead of like so you isolate the idea of a bloke that turns into a werewolf every full moon, which is once a month.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not scary. But then you make it scary by introducing gothic scenery and disturbing images.
So is it a sort of postmodern take on it then?
Sabrina?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Because it's set in the modern day.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
Right. Okay. I mean, I used to watch a show called My Babysitter's a Vampire. When I was
I've never seen that.
Yeah, I don't really want to see a bunch of Disney kids running around doing magic and shit anymore. It's like,
no, it's because it's set in the same universe as, Riverdale.
Oh, fuck it, right, well that's it, I'm not watching it then. That show's fucking shite.
No, trust me, it's better than Riverdale.
Well,
but the thing is, I do sort of enjoy Riverdale in a weird way. It's for the
yuck.
same reason I go to the zoo. It's like I keep watching it just because it's like, well, what ridiculous thing is going to happen next?
Oh, God.
One of them had a fist fight with a bear and won.
Fuck off. See, these shows piss me off.
But Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is good. That's quite good.
Yeah, well...
Like, it relies on the strength of its main actress, and she's very good.
I mean, I liked her in Mad Men.
I have not watched Mad Men.
What's her name again? I can't remember her name.
I can't remember her name
She was a young girl. She was very young in it. But she was very, very good. Because it was like, you know, parents...
Kiernan Shipka.
What's her name?
Kiernan Shipka.
Oh, right, okay. I know that Michelle Gomez in it?
Yes, she is. She's really good in it. It's really strange. She plays this sort of... I don't know how to describe it. It's like sort of a demon, sort of not a demon.
Right.
That's like doing Satan's bidding at Sabrina's school.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds very Wizards of Waverly Place. But
I've never seen... Let me Google that quickly.
But probably a bit darker.
It is actually quite spooky. Like, quite a lot of things happen to her that are actually quite spooky.
Right.
Like, she gets locked up in this room, and, like, I think it's like ghosts or something talk to her, and it is spooky. It is good. I would recommend it.
Okay.
It's not... I've just Googled Wizards of Waverly Place. It doesn't seem to be very Wizards of Waverly Place. This seems very different to Sabrina.
Right. Is it... Have you ever seen Skins?
I think I have. Is that the one with, what's his name? From Nicholas Hoult?
Yeah, I like Skins. If it's Skins with magic, I'll watch it.
Briefly reminding myself of Skins.
But if it's another fucking American high school type shit with ridiculously good looking people having the most menial problems, then I probably won't be doing that.
No, it's somewhere between Skins and whatever the hell that thing was you mentioned just now that I had no idea what it was. Wizards of Waverly Place.
Right.
Like, they do have very menial, very teenage problems, but it is also spooky, and it presents this interesting version of witchcraft.
Right, okay. I'll give it a look. But
okay.
if I don't like it, then
I'll be the first to know, I'm sure.
You'll be the first to know.
Right, have you got any more questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's probably going to be a quick one.
Sure.
Are some crimes worthy of death?
I sort of disagree with the death penalty.
So do I.
I think that it's not... What does that achieve?
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Well, do some people deserve to die for some crimes? Maybe not. Maybe not the death penalty. I'm not saying that we should bring it back or anything like that. But I'm saying that are some crimes so reprehensible that they deserve death? Not that it's definitely going to happen, but is death warranted for some horrific crimes, like maybe I don't know, like genocide or something like that?
I have to say, I don't think that, like, in my mind, death.
I'm going to make it even more difficult. Say it was like Hitler.
Okay.
Does Hitler deserve to die if Hitler survived and he was put on trial? Would he deserve to be executed?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Okay.
Is the simple answer.
I know,
because
it's not a very fair question.
And it's the case of, like, I don't believe that death is a good... Like, once you've threatened somebody with death, there's nowhere to go from that. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
If you say, well, the penalty for this crime is death, and they do it anyway, well, I suppose I've got to kill you then. But if they've accepted the consequence, then they don't give a shit about it. Do you know what I mean? It's not a good way to... I genuinely have no idea how to answer that question.
I know, it wasn't a very fair question to bring up. I like putting you in the spot sometimes, Lewis. See how you fare. What about you? Any other questions?
I have one left.
Okay.
Does the prison system in Shawshank, and if it's an allegory for the US, then the US, Does that prison system focus on punishment instead of rehabilitation? And if so, is it right to do so?
Well, I mean, I think we have to be fair. I mean, the time in which Shawshank is set, I would say that it was considerably more barbaric back then.
Sure.
Which, but that's not to say that it's not barbaric today.
Yeah.
I do think that they focus far more on punishment than rehabilitation, and I don't think that's really a foolproof way of dealing with crime.
Neither do I.
I think that rehabilitation and, making sure that people aren't in the position or don't feel as if they should be able to do things like that is a bit more important.
Sure.
But I think, that's not me saying that crimes don't deserve punishment. Crimes do deserve punishment, but if we can make it so that no one needs to do crimes and the only people that are left that do crimes are just bad people, then that would be an ideal place to be, in my view.
Yes, I agree. And that was my vaguely political question.
Right, fair enough.
I've run out of questions now, I've got to say. Have you got any more?
Nope, I've run out as well.
Okay. Is it time for closing statements?
It certainly is. Would you like to go first?
Sure thing. One of the most beautiful films about the human condition. Remarkably straightforward. Good wins, evil doesn't. However, it still speaks about freedom in a way that I've not seen in any other piece of media.
Well, there you go. Lovely.
Is yours about horror films and the nature of horror films? Because we talked about that for about 20 minutes.
Yep. Cthulhu should be in this. No. A warm, brilliantly directed and acted film, fundamentally about optimism, and even though I'm pessimistic to the fucking core, it's still good. So there you go.
I can't agree more. It's I really am a fan of this film. It is absolutely superb. It's beautifully crafted. It is kind of gorgeous in a lot of different parts, like cinematography, especially within the cinema. The prison block. Like the guards appear so huge, so imposing, and the prison block itself is so huge and imposing.
Yes, definitely.
Well, that was the Shawshank Redemption.
It certainly was.
And some horror films in the middle.
Yeah, just a quick tirade about Cthulhu and H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe. But I mean, it's a good comparison to make, because Stephen King is very well known for writing horrific books.
Yeah, that's true.
Not in terms of quality, just the genre.
He's known for writing abysmal, terrible books.
Just shite books. Yeah. So that's us.
Yeah.
What are we doing? What are we doing next week, Lewis?
I'm not entirely sure. Why don't you remind me?
Oh, right. I thought I'd set you up there, but no. But don't worry, I'm prepared. I'm prepared as ever. Next week, because it's the Christmas season, we're not going to be posting.
Yes, that's the one.
Do you want to do it now, Lewis?
Yeah, I'd love to. I was looking at my notes.
You do it then.
I've looked at my notes and they don't make any sense, but now you've said that, it makes much more sense.
It's alright, you do it. I was in the middle of doing it. It's like, oh, yes.
Now I understand. It's okay, everybody. Don't you worry. I'll tell everybody what's going on here. Nobody worry about that.
I've got a better accent. Don't worry.
Right. Well, because obviously this episode's going to go out on the 15th. Next one would have been the 22nd. However, because it'll be the Christmas season, we've decided to do 2 Christmas specials. Isn't that right, Danny?
Yeah.
On the 24th, my wife and I are going to teach Danny the true meaning of Christmas by talking to him about the film Love Actually.
Fuck's sake.
And on the 24th, Danny is going to teach me what he thinks Christmas is about by talking to me about the film Black Christmas, the original one from the 70s.
It's a fucking scary film.
I'm sure it is.
So,
I'm sure I look forward to being scared.
Yes, that's what Christmas is about. Fear.
Being terrified.
Fear and dread.
Thank
Where
you very
can
much for
people
listening to
find
this
you,
episode
Lewis?
today. Oh God, yeah, we forgot to do that last week, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I noticed
People
that.
can find me on Instagram at Lewis_Brindley. They can find me on Twitter at LewisBrindley4. And if they happen to be near me, they can find me by going out into the street and shouting my name. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at ohhirum. They can also find me on Twitter at Kerso2000, and they can also find me on Facebook, which my name is Daniel Kerr. It's a page, sitting solemn. Yeah, I've described that a couple of times now. Can't keep doing it for you folks. So yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back on the 24th of December. I'll see you then. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.